Hi y'all, how you doing? It's Kathy with Encounters with Spirits. I'm gonna tell the story today. Oh, we better get ready. Sorry, I'm having the sniffles. Get your water. Because the Lord told us to stay hydrated. Put your lipstick on because we're getting ready while everybody's getting on here. And I have just been so hot in this shed today chasing these cats. But it's okay. Water, lipstick, and glasses. See, this is why I do this, so I'll remember all the things I need when I'm telling these stories. Anyway, I hope y'all are doing good. I'm just kind of visiting with y'all today, so I'm gonna share a couple things that have happened to me. You know, I've told y'all a lot of what y'all call ghost stories. They're spirit stories, you know, visits from spirits and things. And I have seen what we call ghosts. Yes, that's just most of the time. A lot of times it's the saints of God, and then sometimes it's lost souls, you know. So it just depends. Anyway, I'm going to tell you a little story about when I went to a Packer football game. It's been years ago, and I had not yet understood who I was as a person, what was going on with me, why. I never understood the gift that I have. Nothing to do with me. It's given to me by God, and I didn't understand it because I was fearful of it, because everybody told me how wrong it was. And then I could hear you know, people from heaven talking to me that, you know, first of all, they thought I was crazy. Everybody used to call me crazy and all the things. And so I kept it secret and was afraid of it and all of that stuff. How sad that there are children today probably who are going through that they have a gift and they are able to hear spirits and people tell them that it's wrong and all that. We need to learn a little more about the spiritual world. Anyway, you know, God is a spirit. Jesus is a spirit. Moses and Elijah were spirits who came through the veil to talk to Jesus. And it's not because he was Jesus. It's because he was in understanding of what the realms are like. Anyway, I got off the subject. I'm just kind of ad-libbing today. So what happened is I went to a Packer football game. I had wanted to go to a Packer football game for years, and I finally got to go to a Packer football game. And I was sitting there, and everything was going great. You know, the team was winning and all the things. Well, all of a sudden, I just felt so drawn to the lady in front of me. She was just, there was a young couple in front of me, and I just felt so drawn to her. And I started getting this message that, and as I said, I wasn't even open to listening or anything. It just would come to me and nothing I could do about it. But anyway, this young man starts telling me that she is going to have 3 children. They are such good people, and he was so good to me all of my life, and she is going to have, they're so happy, and they're going to have 3 children, and telling me all of this stuff about this couple that I did not know. And he helped me when I got hurt. He helped me as a friend, you know, all of these nice things about this guy that was sitting in front of me. So I just couldn't help it. At one point when, you know, it was halftime and all the things, I said, hi, you know. I reached up and touched the young lady, and I said, how are you? And I said, did y'all recently have someone pass away that was, I kept seeing this motorcycle. I said, did y'all recently have a friend pass away that passed away on a motorcycle? And she said, yes, he did, you know, and she said the name of the young man, and the guy turned around and looked at me, and he was shocked that I knew anything like that. Had never spoken to these people. And I said, he just wants y'all to know how happy he is y'all got together. He says y'all both deserve each other because you're both good people, and y'all are going to have a very happy life together. You're going to have 3 children. It was just a prophecy, y'all. It was a prophecy from heaven about what was going to go on between this young couple. I'm betting they had the best marriage and life after that ever, because he was just so excited about what good people they were and how they were a good fit for one another. Anyway, I said all this to them, but I was kind of scared too, and I was kind of trying to say it, but without being very pushy or anything, because I didn't know if they were going to accept this or think I was crazy, be mad at me or whatever, you know, you never know. So he sat and just listened to me as I told these things, and she was just, you know, so excited and all that. And then he said, well, you know, I believe you. And I said, well, I'm glad. I said, I really don't know how this works or anything, and I don't want to do anything against God, you know. And he said, oh, no. He said, we're believers. And he said, I totally believe you. It's just God, the Holy Spirit, you know, telling you things. And I said, well, yes, it is through a messenger. You know, that's the way God spoke to the people in the Old Testament. Yes, God was speaking to them through a messenger, through a saint of God. So anyway, this young man said, and I'll show you why I believe you. And I just looked at him. I didn't know how he was going to show me. I thought he was going to pull out a picture of the young man out of his wallet or something. But he lifted up his pant leg, and he had a motorcycle tattoo on his calf, and it had the name of his friend across it who had passed in the motorcycle accident. So those are the kinds of things that I experience. And that was the only, I'm trying to think of little stories, you know, that I can tell y'all that are not particularly ghost stories. I didn't see anything at the football game, or I just get the message, and to me it's the same thing. I mean, if the young man would have walked up and told me the message like they used to when people really had faith in the Old Testament, they would say, you know, an angel of the Lord, meaning messenger, because in Hebrew angel means messenger, you know, came, and it's like they saw 3 men walking, or, you know, a man came, and they describe them as men. They don't describe them as humans with wings or any of that stuff, which there is no such thing. That is a fantasy. You don't get wings when you go to heaven. You don't need them. Your body, you get a glorified body that transcends matter. That's supposed to be on my Cowgirl Posse Bible study page, not this. But anyway, there's that. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to read a little bit from my manuscript. Okay, it's mine. It's copyrighted by me and all the things. So, but just to give you an idea of the stories that I write. So this one is called Camouflage Angel, and I would show you the cover, except this is the original version, and it has a new cover now. And so anyway, I'm going to just read you the first chapter to give you an idea of how these stories go. Gray clouds loomed ominously overhead as the autumn leaves began to fall. Lightning flashed in the distance, and rolling thunder reverberated across the heavens. Soon the rain would come. Cold wind blew wildly around Catherine as she walked down the path that had been rutted out in the forest by the four-wheelers. They had left their mark behind when they had made their way from the main road down to the creek bed to participate in the mudding wars. Many mudding and splashing wars took place down at the creek bed and in the creek bottoms. Mudding was considered a sport in that county. Everyone in Smithfield that had a four-wheeler was guilty, at one time or another, of passing through the shallow waters to drench or throw gravel at any friends that accompanied them. Sometimes they targeted other off-road vehicles, such as old Jeeps that were sacrificed to the sport. The county officials posted signs that read "No motorized vehicles," but the rebels didn't care about the signs. The posted signs made mudding more exciting because they were breaking the law, enforcing Catherine's theory that the law only bound law enforcement most of the time. Then summer ended. It was fall, so the mudding wars stopped. An occasional four-wheeler was seen taking deer corn out to the deer stands. It was almost hunting season. Soon, everything in the forest would change. Catherine wasn't quite sure what she was looking for. She scanned the pathway, searching out anything unnatural. She was drawn deeper into the haunting woods. It was as if something or someone was pulling her along. She opened her mind and her heart to guidance from above and around her. The leaves would have covered any evidence that may have been here, she thought. She dismissed that thought and continued her search. Branches scraped across her face, catching in her hair as she hiked over the inclines and crossed through the low water crossings. The woods looked peaceful, even though the weather was changing. Looks can be deceiving. This is the calm before the storm, she thought. It was hard for her to believe that violent, ungodly acts were committed there. Catherine was raised in the country. Her father was mostly Indian. He was a woodsman. He taught her how to listen to creation. The animals, trees, and the ground itself gave out signals, warnings, or comfort. She learned to trust her instincts, to be still and listen. She could see the slightest movement in the woods at a glance. She heard the twigs crackle ahead of her. The leaves rustled as the squirrels scurried to their hiding places. The birds were perched in the trees because of the high winds. The smell of rain was in the air. Her face was damp from the moisture of the morning dew. The four-wheeler paths ended, so she found different trails to follow. Soon after she began hiking, she realized that she was not quite as agile as she had been in her youth. Determination filled her heart, causing her body to respond. She began to feel stronger, and she was able to continue her quest. I don't have much time, she thought. The leaves were a conglomeration of oranges, browns, and yellows. They littered the pathway in swirling piles. At times, it was like watching an orchestra in motion. They seemed to move in rhythm to the wind's song. Rocks fell into the path. In places, it appeared that small avalanches had occurred. Fire ants built large mounds along the trails. There were huge spider webs that were sometimes unavoidable. Catherine tried not to disturb nature. However, she had to take a large stick and destroy some of the webs in order to pass along the trail. Luckily, she did not see any spiders. Spiders gave her the creeps. The thought of encountering a snake frightened her. She decided that if a snake came across the path, she would get out of its way, if possible. Otherwise, she was prepared to defend herself with the pistol that she carried in her backpack. The wind gathered strength, whistling through the trees in high-pitched shrills. It was warning her of the storm to come, or maybe something else. However, she couldn't turn back, not yet. Her heart was set on finding evidence of what may have happened to the people that went missing in the section of roadway between Smithville and the creek. The creek ran for miles. After several hours of torturous hiking in the circles, back and forth, up and down the creek bed, she sat down on a bald patch of a large mossy rock to rest for a few minutes and to eat a sandwich. "If you want me to help you, you have to show me where they took you," she said out loud. Again, she felt them pull her in the direction of the creek. They were the missing. Nobody knew what had happened to them. After hearing the stories about specific people that had gone missing, especially the last woman that went missing, Catherine decided that she would use her abilities as a seer to help find them. She wanted to help bring peace to the families that they had left behind. Also, she wanted to help prevent the abduction of anyone else in Smithville. After she finished her sandwich, catching her second wind, she left the rock. Finally, she came to an opening in the brush on the creek's edge. She could see the water rushing over the flat brown rocks and the gravel that lined the creek bed. Minnows swam frantically in schools, fighting the current, and eventually caught them and carried them downstream to the creek bottoms. Daylight was ebbing away. Dusk began to settle across the stream of water, bringing with it a low-lying mist. Frogs croaked and the crickets chirped in rhyme with one another. It began sprinkling as the wind had promised. The storm was upon her. It was almost nightfall. The cloud cover caused it to seem much later than it was. The daylight was choked out, making visibility difficult. "They brought her through here," Catherine thought. "I've passed it. I have to get back." She turned around, weary that the storm might reach her before she reached her truck. As she traveled back, she continued scanning the woods for any signs that may have been left behind. There weren't any. The rain began to sweep in waves of light mists, then heavier sprays. It took her a while to get back to the place she had started from. "I'll be back," she said over her shoulder as she exited the brushy woods. She reached the main road. Briars had ripped through her blue jeans. They tore the skin on her legs. She took a fall because she was trying to hurry. "Relax, sister. It's been a long time," said a voice from the past. Catherine recognized the voice. It calmed her. "I know. All in God's time. God's speed," Catherine replied. At first, when she began to understand her gift as a seer, it startled her. As the years went by, her gift grew. It became comforting. In fact, she accepted, even welcomed help that came to her from the other side. The voice that she heard was the voice of her brother. He died several years earlier. However, he never left her. For a time, she thought that he was gone. It was only when she got older that she realized he had not gone anywhere. He was still around her. She felt that he watched over her, although she was sure that he came and went wherever he was needed as God allowed him to. Catherine made her way to the truck. Climbing in, she flipped on the radio as she started the engine. Traveling away from the creek in an effort to release some of her stress from the frustration of hiking all day without a find, she began singing along with one of her favorite tunes. Her brother's words reminded her that it wasn't really her battle. She just kept taking it on herself. She let go of it once more. She gave it back to God. The windshield wipers kept time with the radio. Suddenly the heavens opened up and the thunderstorm poured down on her as the wind and clouds had promised. She struggled to stay on the road because her headlights reflected only a short distance in front of her. She slowed down, trying to maintain a safe speed so that she would not hydroplane. When she was about 5 miles away from the creek, she saw a big buck run out of the woods. He ran alongside her truck. He was a magnificent monster. He was obviously the granddaddy of all the deer in that neck of the woods. He was guarding his territory. Massive muscles bulged with every bound that he took. He started darting at her truck as if he were trying to attack it. Catherine was scared to death. She had heard tales of the male deer charging at vehicles during the rutting season. However, she couldn't believe the aggression of the deer. She slowed the truck, swerving out of his way 3 or 4 times. On his final charge, it appeared that he was trying to run the truck off the road. He clipped in to the right corner panel, hitting it. The impact felt like the impact of another car. The deer's antlers slammed down on the hood of her truck, scraping across the hood as he fell. He rolled under the right tire, and she could not avoid running completely over him. She had tried to miss him. Instead, she hit him hard. Her heart pounded in her chest in the darkness. Catherine didn't know if she had killed the deer or not. She wanted to help him. She was on the wrong side of the road, and it felt like the truck tire was flat because the truck began to wobble and thump. After she came to a complete stop, she threw the gear into park. Then she jumped out of the truck, landing in ankle-deep water. She ran to the back of the truck. Something kept her from approaching the deer. She could barely see him because it was nightfall, overcast and raining. However, there was a full moon. Flashes of lightning filled the sky. The clouds broke for a moment. She saw him thrashing around on the pavement, trying to get up. "Oh, poor thing," she said. She stood there beside her truck, feeling terrible for hitting the magnificent animal. The deer finally kicked himself up off of the pavement and stood up. At that moment, Catherine realized how big he was and how dangerous it was for her to stand there outside of her truck. The deer put his head way down low. He began to blow air through his nostrils and mouth in hard snorts, threatening her. She stood perfectly still. She could see his eyes reflecting in the moonlight. He was looking intently at her. Then he looked past her. He was looking at the truck. It was as if he were looking at an opponent in some kind of tournament. It appeared that the realization for the deer was that he had just lost the contest. He seemed to want one more look at the opponent that took him down. With that last look, he lifted his head high in the air, turning away from Catherine and the truck. He ran, limping across the pavement. She saw him jump the fence on the other side of the road. He was headed back in the direction of the creek. Catherine felt that he would surely die. The impact was too hard for him to survive it, she thought. She turned around, walking up to the front of the truck to assess the damage. It was in bad shape. The right front quarter panel was smashed and the tire was flat. Her situation was as she feared it was. The truck was disabled. She was in quite a predicament. Though the road that she was on was a main road, it wasn't traveled on much after dark. There were too many stories about people going missing out in that part of the woods. Even the city dwellers that moved out of the big city to the country knew to stay put at home after dark. Catherine jumped back in her truck and she turned on the hazard lights. Then she realized she reached for her cell phone to call a friend for help. She was in a dead zone. Darn, she thought. She began to feel panicked, but she didn't want to overreact. The wind picked up again. The temperature was dropping because the storm was bringing in a cold front, the first one of the year. Catherine got out of the truck, opened the back panel door, and lifted the back bench seat to get the jack so that she could change the tire. The jack was there, however, the extension to the jack that turned the lever was missing. Oh man, David used my truck last week to haul his dirt bike to the track. He must have used the jack for something, she thought. She threw the jack back into the truck because it was of no use to her. She tried dialing 911 on her cell phone. For some reason, it did not go through. She was always told that 911 calls went through even in dead zones. She was surprised that it didn't work. Now she felt all alone, and it frightened her for a moment. Then she felt a peace come over her when she remembered that she was never all alone. She believed that she had a guardian angel. Silly, some would say. Catherine had already learned that angels were powerful beings, and far, far from silly. She stuck the cell phone in the pocket of her jacket, grabbed her backpack, and began walking back in the direction of the creek in the pouring down rain. At first, she thought that she would just flag a car down if one came by. After she walked about 2.5 miles, in the distance she saw headlights approaching. The stories that she had heard came to mind. Fear gripped her. She slid down the embankment, hiding in the ditch on the side of the road until the car passed by her. She was already exhausted from hiking through the woods all day. Somehow she pressed forward. Perhaps it was a natural instinct to keep moving, a survival instinct. It was cold. The wind mixed with rain made chill bumps rise up on her arms and shivers run through her. She projected that she was about 8 more miles from Glenn's country store where she could use the phone. Although she lived in Smithville, it was closer for her to go back than to continue on the forward path to town. She would have to pass back over the creek. She hoped that the deer would not attack her when she got to the creek as she crossed the bridge. She thought that he must have come up from the creek because the thicket was dense there. It was good cover for the deer. At that moment, she remembered that she took her pistol out of her backpack and placed it in the glove box of the truck. She also remembered that her pepper spray and knife were in the side pocket on the truck door. Why had she forgotten to get them? She almost turned around to go back and to stay put at the truck. However, something told her that she would be a sitting duck. Fear gripped her once more. She turned to God for comfort. God, please protect me until I can get to Glenn's, she prayed. She placed her trust in God. Her fear faded. Caution remained. So that's the first chapter of my book, Camouflage Angel, the one that I told you that a friend of mine who had passed away had given me, the first part of it. Of course, most of it is just my own imagination, but it goes along with all of my stories. So I just wanted to share that with y'all. Anyway, I'm looking up, trying to find other stories, and I've been looking for my little Bible that the Lord wanted me to show y'all, but I can't find it. I'm finding all this other stuff. Anyway, I'm just going to share things as I get them. And I hope y'all enjoy it, and I'll talk to you later. Leave me messages. I don't see any comments on here, so I know I wasn't supposed to come on today, but I'm trying to do this in between working out in my yard. I have some projects going on. Okay, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.